also put in the chat a direct link to the Jamboard. So it'd be great if you could access that, which Sam is very kindly showing on the screen as well, because this is very much an interactive process. So we'd love to see your thoughts and comments on there. If anyone's having trouble, just shout. Equally, if you'd rather vocally tell us things and Sam captures it, then certainly raise your hand and we can do it that way as well. So we're going to just start the session just to give a little overview of what the CfCA is. And I know I'm aware some of you guys have very kindly attended sessions earlier in the week. But for those who haven't, welcome. And we'll give you a bit of context and a bit of an idea of the direction we want to take this session in. It is very much a co-productive process. We really want to hear as members, what you bring to the table. So and what you want the CfCA to look like going forward. We really value that input. So if I could just ask anyone who's not on mute just to kindly go on mute for this part. And then, of course, if you want to ask any comments later on, certainly come off mute. It just helps with the background noise. Thank you. So I'm Maya. I work on the Inclusivity Working Group. I'm one of the key members of the CfCA, and Sam, who's joined us today, is working on growth and engagement and is a really valuable person and member on the team. We have Heather, who is our fantastic coordinator, does all things with council, and hi Heather. And we have Mike somewhere as well, who does all of our comms. So fantastic to see you all here, and I'm sure there are many others. So the Collective for Climate Action, it was founded in May 2019. The idea is to have as many both public and civil servants on board to raise awareness about both the climate and biodiversity crisis, because we know they are intrinsically linked. And we do that in a very multifaceted way. We bring in both internal and external specialists to talk about the evidence and science behind climate change, but we are also very aware about, things like eco-anxiety, and we host a variety of climate cafes where people can talk about their feelings in a very safe and anonymized way. And just a plug, the next one is on the 3rd of June at 2 till 3, and you'll find that on our Eventbrite. We are created by a variety of coordinator groups covering things like research, education, inclusivity, human resources, and people can do as much or as little as they please and join those groups as well. We have things like fundamentals documents, which explains a bit more about our structure, our aims, our ethos. And we also have our proposals document, which we use as a direction for seniors within the departments to hold them both accountable and also to see what we can deliver on the ground when it comes to raising that awareness. So if any of you haven't seen those documents and would like to, then please don't hesitate to contact any one of us, and I'm sure Sam or Heather would kindly put in the chat our email addresses, so you can feel free to contact us at any point. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about sort of pledges, and then look at a little bit about campaigning, because this week we've been focusing on engagement with our members, and in September we hope to sort of do a similar week looking much more at growth. We've grown exponentially till this point. We have over 1,000 members and counting, over 23 departments from CFAS, EA, Natural England, Home Office, you name it, they seem to be on it. And we have over, I think, Heather will correct me here, over, I think, 100 individuals in local councils supporting us. So I see Heather's come off mute.
Yeah, 130 councils, but 190 people from councils.
Brilliant. Thank you, Heather. And we have many critical friends, so people that are doing similar things to us that we want to share best practice, because we're certainly not about reinventing the wheel. We're about learning from each other and strengthening our voice. We are very fortunate to work in the jobs we do, even if some days we don't think so. On a professional level, we can hold government to account and we have the voice to do so. So we need to try and raise that awareness. We know that specifically Deaf for a Permanent Secretary have used us in ministerial debates, so we have got that support very high up. It's now thinking about how we incorporate middle line management in our journey. So one of the things I wanted to look at particularly in the first half, and Sam, if you could move to the next slide on Jamboard, that would be great, is this idea of pledges. So one of the things we decided very early on in the CfCA was, what did we want to see from members as they joined us, and what did members want to see from us? And it began to become really apparent that becoming a member, one would hope that we all have the same sort of inspirations, aims, sense of urgency when it comes to the climate and biodiversity crisis. So we came up with these ideas of doing sort of basic pledges and then sort of practitioner level pledges. And the basic was things like, you know, whether it was updating your profile on Slack to say who you were, your involvement in CfCA, whether you added us to your email signatures, if your department, of course, allowed that, whether you read the proposals document, and if you were happy, you would then sign it. And then the other thing was practitioner level, where we sort of thought about committing to 5 things to take action. And they were a little bit more time heavy, although, you know, when you look at the list, I think a lot of us are already doing quite a lot of these things, but it was kind of a little bit more of an expectation that as you delved further into your CfCA journey, you would be taking on more commitments, as it were. So things like joining us on LinkedIn, sharing events with team members, talking to other people that were not part of the CfCA to see if they would like to become part of it and what, you know, skills and tools they could bring as well, because it's all invaluable. And we just wondered, you know, first of all, having looked at the ones on Jamboard, whether A, you're doing any of this stuff already, either on a professional or a personal level, and B, what other things you think is something we could ask of members, because we have to be careful, of course. Our members are volunteers at the end of the day, and you know, we want to make it very relevant and achievable and smart objectives in terms of specific and measurable, but we are volunteers, so we just wanted to hear from you either on Jamboard, and I can see some were added, which is great, or indeed do come off mute if there are things you can see on there you're doing, which is brilliant, or anything else you see gaps in that you think we should be asking our members to think about and consider. I guess.
I'll just quickly on my screen share show how to add a sticky note for anyone that doesn't already know.
Absolutely, Sam, thank you.
So I'll go across, and then the 4th one down on this sidebar is a sticky note, and you just click on it, type something, save it, and it will appear for us all to see. So there's like a really nice big type there. So that's how you do that. And also you can navigate across, if you've not already navigated to this frame at the top center, you can navigate across to the different frames.
Absolutely, thank you, Sam. And have we seen any coming in? My old age means that I can't see the screen so well, so I'm going to open Jamboard in another screen for myself. I see some movement.
Just one question from me. I guess it's understanding the difference between what we're doing as individuals and what we're trying to make happen organisationally or through our teams or through our whole organisation. Have you got any clarity on that? Are we talking about ourselves individually, or are we talking about it structurally?
It's a really good question, Richard, and thank you for bringing it forward. It's both. It's both, because we know for the jobs we do, we have got a lot of avenues already open to us. So there's a lot of gift we can bring on a professional level, but equally it's on a personal level. You know, it's things, you know, I'd be intrigued to see on here, and I can see it all moving. It's brilliant what people do on a personal level just as much as on a professional, because I certainly learn from others, and I've learned things that I've not even considered doing myself, you know. So is there anything that strikes, without putting you too much on the spot there, Richard, that you feel you have been doing anyway, and things that you could not improve on but take forward?
The proposal, I was reading the proposals document again to remind myself, and one of the things that I work for Durham County Council. One of the things that we've done is we've now got climate change as a key element of every new job description. So that's now in there as one of the personal specifications. But one of the bits that we've been talking about for a while but haven't, and COVID got in the way of it, to be honest, is the staff training element part of it. So we have a program called Climate Champions, which is voluntary for people to be able to join, and we use a Teams channel for that. And I can't remember how many, but there's a few hundred people within the authority that are
Wow.
put themselves forward as Climate Champions. So it's a good group, and it's quite collaborative, and people come up with ideas and suggestions. But the actual formal training side of staff is not something that we've done yet, and I wonder whether there's an opportunity to have a standardized kind of basic training package for public sector staff that could be adapted and so on to suit individual organisations that would work to save us all reinventing the wheel and creating our own short training module.
Absolutely, Richard. And I can see, Heather, you've got your hand up. I was hoping you did, because I think you're going to talk about what the very thing that came to my mind as Richard spoke. Let's learn from each other. Let's not reinvent the wheel. And I know we've put some stuff in practice already. Heather, I think you're going to allude to that.
Yeah, so BEIS has actually funded carbon literacy training. I don't know if you're aware of that, Richard. I don't want to reinvent if you know about that.
I do, and I'm certainly aware of the training that that APSI Energy have been offering around carbon literacy. But
yes,
I didn't know that BEIS were funding it specifically, though.
Yeah, so just for information, because I know we can take this offline if not, and I know Anthony is doing a lot on that. So basically, BEIS have funded 3 projects: carbon literacy for local authorities, carbon literacy for members, and carbon literacy for residents. And the delivery of those is basically train the trainer. So I've been on a carbon literacy course. I can now train carbon literacy. And I know Anthony will refer to that as well. So the cost is normally, if you deliver it yourself, it is £10 per person admin fee. So of course, APSI is, of course, you're paying, I think it's £379 over 2 mornings. And that's not with VAT. And that's because, of course, they're hosting it with people and they have to claim for their time. And what we are looking at the CfCA is doing a mock event following this. I want to kind of, we're finding out how we can communicate to people before I can send out these, but we're thinking of doing an event as maybe like a trial for those that are in positions where, unlike your council, you've got training approved. Some people don't have any training because they're not in any climate group. So I want to do that as an offering. But it would be, if you want a certificate, it's £10. If you don't want it, you can join. But we're likely to do that because that's going to have to be in our own time. So I might have to do like 2 Saturday mornings or something, or whether people want to do it at work and I just take the day off as flexi, for example. So I've got to work that out. And then we really want to do, there's a carbon literacy push day on the 1st of November across the whole UK, and offering that out. And I'm looking at doing that for residents as well, in my area where I live. So yeah, carbon literacy are literally, they just joined up to CfCA last week. So they're on there. If you have any questions, you want to try it out, be part of the mock group, Richard, because I've never done it online. I've only ever done it face to face. So it's going to be a weird experience. Though Anthony mentioned that they're running a course, it's funded as well, so it's all online. And I'll share with you on the link the packages, and you literally just email them and they'll send you over the packages to deliver. I'm being quiet.
No need, Heather. You don't need to be quiet. And also, you're being far too humble. I'm sure you'd provide that session very well, even if in a virtual world. I'm actually surprised I haven't done the mistake of being on mute and kind of hitting that mute button consistently. I haven't done it yet. So we've got in chat Anthony Herford. We're running the carbon literacy training course for local authorities. Richard, if you haven't spotted that, he's very kindly supplying some links, which is great, as is Heather as well. That's brilliant, Heather. Thank you. The other thing, just looking at Jamboard, which is really interesting, is some people have said, yep, they can't put the CfCA on their email signature, which is fine. We do always suggest to talk to your independent organizations to see whether that is plausible. And very good point about can't access proposals due to restrictions on my work PC. That's something we're going to need to take away to consider. And somebody signed it, helped me raise with management and push. That is brilliant. That's brilliant. That's exactly what we wanted it to happen, because, you know, when we did the proposals, we did go to very senior leadership teams, both in the EA and in Natural England. And we said, do you think these things are achievable? Because we don't want to write a proposals document and not have it achievable across the board. And they said yes. So the fact that people are signing it is just giving it that much more strength for it to be imposed. And it is a living document as well. This is really great. Is there anybody else that wants to come off mute? No pressure, to say what they are doing, what they think they could do more of in terms of a pledge? Sam, you're on mute.
I am, yeah. Thanks, Maya. I was just putting my hand up just to say that I don't think we've addressed this, but there's just one quick question on the Jamboard that I've spotted, which is in response to the practitioner climate action level 2 ambassador note, someone just said, please can you explain this more? So just to address that, that's, to be fair, it probably would have, maybe we should have put this right at the top of that page. Basically, what we're saying here is we've divided into the kind of like pledges you can take into the basic ones, so the ones on the left, which we'd kind of expect, well, we'd hope that all, if not most of our members would be doing. And then on the right, we've maybe got the slightly more advanced ones. And I think what we're saying is if you do these more advanced ones, then you kind of like take on the label of climate action level 2 ambassador. So that's what it is. It's just basically a way of it's just basically being a level 2 member of the CfCA. And yeah, that's basically what today's session is partly about, isn't it? Just kind of like setting out what we think, what you guys think in terms of what's a good pledge for that level 2 person, like that level 2 practitioner to take on versus a basic pledge. So just to explain that one.
Yes, Sam. And the other thing I'll do on the chat is I will send a direct link to everybody of a Trello board. And on that Trello board, I hope people can access that okay. It shows what we would think is basic and what we would think is practitioner as well. So that just gives you a bit of a gist of the things we thought were suitable to ask of members as well. Great. So the other
I think
thing,
there's an interesting one with like somebody on is from a parish council, and I think it's that kind of link between a lot of our actions are individual actions, but it's quite generic in terms of you can do something at home, you can do something at work, and like with parish, you could do something personal at a parish council level and something higher up. I think it's how do we link in with the different types of pledges. You know, how do we get people to take steps at work and not feel scared to do it, between, you know, what they can do at home, what they can do at work? It's quite a hard level line to kind of walk on, isn't it? It's, you know, we want to affect both of it and engage the parishes, because that's another thing, isn't it? It's because we've got different levels and it gets quite different. No, I think it's quite a fair comment, to be honest.
A very fair comment. A very fair comment. Sorry, I was just messaging Natalia. What a lovely name on the chat. I'll get back to you, Natalia. What I'll say is email me and I can give you a copy of what Trello says, and anybody else for that matter. Yeah, Heather, it's a really good point. And I think the beauty about the collective, certainly in my eyes, and I know I'm biased because I've been in it for long enough, is that, you know, being part of a collective, you are part of a collective voice. You're not on your own. And so when you're trying to justify, as I know a lot of members have come back to me and have said, you know, I've got my day job to do. I've got very little time to get things done, you know, and I've got management looking over my shoulder going, why are you doing CfCA bits, right? And I think the beauty about the collective is we have that voice, we feel empowered, you know, and we almost are behind each other to say it's okay to go to line management. And, you know, anyone else that doesn't feel the confidence or not quite there yet can just pick up the phone to any one of us and we can explain the routes we took. But it is a good point, because pledges work best when they're done collectively, right? And when there's almost a form of accountability. It sounds very draconian, but actually you do need a bit of accountability to get them done, don't you, and to measure success. Which actually leads really nicely to, and just so you're aware, these Jamboards will be open for a period of time after this session. So for both the people on the recording and also the ones that have kindly joined, you can certainly come back and add some more reflections as and when they come. If we go to the next slide, Sam, unless there's anything that I haven't spotted at this point on that board. That's brilliant. So that goes really nicely to sort of, you know, how can we say to each other that we've accomplished a pledge? And one of the things we thought was, you know, by the end of May, which is an arbitrary date, but we thought was achievable, you know, people could say, okay, well, we'll do all the basics, which is on that Trello. And if no one can get that, I can certainly email it directly by the end of May. So it gives something to look forward to and to achieve. But then there's also the question, the sticky note on the right there on the screen, which, how would you like to feed back on whether you've achieved your pledge? So is it things that we reach out periodically on Slack? Is it something where we can capture that on a Survey Monkey? Because right now we're trying to build as much evidence behind this stuff as possible. So when we do go up to senior level, we can say, you know, there is a real appetite for this. People are collectively taking on actions, and we've also realizing there are gaps and we need more support to achieve these actions, for instance. So I don't know if there's anyone that has feedback either on Jamboard or indeed vocally right now on the call that thinks that they could achieve, you know, the basic pledges, which, if I recap, is things like update your profile on Slack about who you are and your role in the CfCA and your interests, add us to the email if you're allowed to, of course, read the proposals and sign if you're happy to do so, talk to a friend or colleague about climate change in the CfCA, and adopt climate conscious principles in your personal life. So they're very generic sets of goals, as it were. I don't know if anyone has feedback on those.
How do people feel about the idea of like taking on pledges as part of being a member of CfCA? Like, does that work for you, or are you more here just to kind of like dip in and out without? Does it feel like a bit too much of a commitment, or do you think the commitment's useful? I think that's just the kind of like feedback we're after as well.
My take on that, Sam, is it kind of depends, and probably other people. Often it depends on workload and things. You know, we all have periods where it's crazy and we literally can't really have the headspace for anything else. And then the other times there are a bit of times where we can think a bit more strategically and plan what we want to do. And I guess it it comes back to me again what I was saying before about the difference between what we can commit to individually and what we can say, yes, we support that. So for example, I've just signed the proposals document as well, because I think individually I can do that, and in my role I can do that without having to ask for anybody else's permission. So it would depend on the pledges, because there may be some things that I couldn't say, well, as a local authority, I can commit us to this. So it's getting that balance between what we feel comfortable committing to and what we think we'd need to get higher approval for. So that comes back to what the pledges might be, so things, looking at the other the list on Trello, things like writing to your MP and so on. I've done that. Actually, I had a meeting with my MP last year about climate. It didn't go very well, but it was useful he at least gave me an hour of his time, along with a couple of other people. We did it collectively. But it's then looking, I don't know. It's interesting to think the kind of people who are likely to be wanting to engage with the collective are probably folk who individually are probably already trying to in their own lives do quite a bit already, but perhaps might be feeling that the challenges and the inertia are in moving the systems from within a work structure point of view. That might be the challenge that they're having more. But then again, the other side of that matter is, I'm sure I'm like many other authorities, we've declared a climate emergency, we've got a climate emergency plan, and our challenge now is actually just capacity. We as officers know how quickly we need to move. The challenge is making it happen in the time that we've got and ensuring that we have enough budget to be able to deliver on the promises that have been signed and agreed by previous councillors, many of whom are now not in that role because they weren't re-elected. So so it's there's a whole series of challenges out there at different levels that we're trying to juggle.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Richard, as well, of course, is this constant flux of change, right? And interestingly, one of the things Sam and I are trying to do is get another critical friend, as we call them, on board, namely Hope for the Future, who have, as you may well know, real extensive experience of talking to MPs, but also continuing a sustainable relationship with them, so that it's not just this one conversation, end of. They actually have got a really good track record of having countless conversations across time that have been really proactive, which is fabulous. So we're trying to get them on board to do a webinar for our members, hopefully soon. So that's one aspect, but point taken, and I can see as well in the chat, thank you very much, Natalia, that's great. Quite happy to take on basic pledges and then step up to some of the advanced ones, but would need to have a read of the proposals. Yep, you've got the link. If you don't, my email's in the chat. I really like the idea of basic pledges. This is Claire. Thank you, guys. It's coming thick and fast. It's brilliant. I really like the idea of basic pledges to make you feel like an active member without requiring too much time, and then moving on to more advanced activities once you do have time. Exactly. So I think it's a great idea. I would just say we need to make sure we keep up momentum, and these are actions in time and not just a one-off pledge. Absolutely. Absolutely. Point taken. And it is about, to one point, accountability, isn't it? So really good points there. Just conscious of time, and do continue to populate the boards, and we will shortly, I think, Sam, head off to the campaigns, and then if you can just do a beautiful summary at the end. Heather, I don't know, I saw you come off mute for a moment. Was there anything else you wanted to add to the pledges section?
No, I'll add on afterwards, to be fair.
Brilliant. Sam, do you want to take it over and move to the next slide?
Yeah, sure. Just one quick thing to say about the basic pledges as well, just to respond to what Richard was saying. So in terms of, Richard, you mentioned that obviously a lot of us are kind of doing the basic climate things already. Some of the pledges are a bit more to do with kind of like helping the CfCA, so kind of like helping climate indirectly through helping the CfCA just by spreading word of us, getting yourself set up on Slack, things like that. So just just say there are a couple of things which are more CfCA based pledges than strictly climate pledges. But as Maya says, we should probably be moving on to the fourth frame, which actually again ties in a bit to what you were saying as well, Richard, in terms of differences between what we can achieve as individuals versus what we can achieve collectively. So I think this is more looking forwards to how we can kind of get a lot more collective action. So we're thinking about, I think Maya said at the start, we're going to be looking towards a growth week in September. And one idea about this, which is not fully formed, and that's part of what we're hoping today to try and like get some feedback and make it a bit more fully formed, is running a campaign in September. So what I'd be looking for additions to this board is basically just some feedback about the idea of running a campaign, the specific idea, which I'll run through in a minute, but also it'll be really helpful for if anyone has any ideas for alternative campaigns or any ideas of existing campaigns that we can just throw ourselves behind, because that could be more efficient and easier. Just add them in as sticky notes, please. So for me, and again, this is up for debate, but for me, I think a good campaign would be something which, as I've put in the box here, something that involves tangible, achievable actions to take, and that's applicable to workers across the public sector. So for me, I think it needs to move beyond just asking for commitments from higher ups. I think it needs to be looking into actually taking actions now and getting people practiced at taking actions to do with climate. So with that in mind, I'll run through the idea that we've got at the moment, which has been summarised there as change comms culture. In terms of making it specific and tangible, the campaign would be to get people. The campaign could be to get people to stop sending thank you emails. Now, although Energy have calculated that if everybody in Britain sent one less thank you email a day, that would save the equivalent carbon of 81,000 London to Madrid flights, which sounds pretty good. I think I've seen some critiques of that stat, which might be over-egging it a bit, but it would be a significant difference. Obviously, it's not a huge thing compared to our overall like carbon output in the UK. But if we could reduce that, it's something. It also maybe, I think of it as a good way of getting people to be kind of like practiced at thinking about climate. So if they're every day at work thinking I won't send this email because of climate, then it's getting people into that habit, and it's showing workplaces that it's something that they care about. So I like it for that. I like it because it's something which is applicable to a lot of people, and it's just very tangible and easy to do. What I probably like less about it is, as I alluded to, although there is that 80,000 flight stat, it would be a bit of a drop in the ocean. And then it's also in terms of how we actually make it a reality. So I think we'd be looking at kind of like getting footers and emails just to like explain that, you know, you're not going to be receiving a like one-line email from me, but just know that like it's not being rude, it's for the sake of the environment. Maya, you've raised your hand, so that's probably a good chance for me to stop rambling on and see what you have to say.
No, not at all, Sam. It wasn't to cut you short. It was just my memory in my old age. I'll forget it. I think that's the thing, you know, it's about changing our culture across the board. You know, I think like you made a very valid point about the fact that, you know, some people, I know my colleagues will write a thank you email, and I will then feel like if I don't write back saying thank you, I'm being perceived as rude. So I think it's something we just need to change, and that it's okay to say thank you, or to just even worse, put emojis, which I know I've also got. But I think, you know, in COVID, it's definitely increased now because we're not in offices, or the majority of us aren't. And so things that you would just get up and go to your colleague and sort of just tap them on the shoulder. Remember that when we could actually make physical contact all those years ago, and say, you know, these little things. And now you're finding emails where you could just pick up the phone and say those stuff. So I think it is about culture change. I think it's also more, like you've alluded to, Sam, than just doing thank yous. It's things like putting inappropriate, you know, like putting attachments that don't need to necessarily be in the email, for instance, and being conscious of your signature as well, because that contains a lot more than you think when you have all these attachments associated to it. But it's also thinking wider out of comms, you know, things like what we're doing right now on MS Teams, you know, being on video is also not that great for the environment. Do we then think about only being on video when we talk, then turning it off? You know, it's ways of working and being much more smarter about it, and much more conscious about the environment, I guess. That was just my point.
Thanks, Maya. Yeah, I think exactly right. It is about, so I suppose it's about striking a balance between, in terms of like how to tactically think about doing a campaign, it's on one hand, yes, we want it to be kind of like broad, thinking about culture change. And actually, in terms of that, looking into post-COVID working, it's a good opportunity, isn't it, to get, because people are rethinking working cultures already. There's a note on that someone's added onto the Jamboard as well there, talking about tracking potential carbon benefits of hybrid working. So I think that probably links into what I'm saying now, in terms of now's like a good time to be thinking about this. So to like not have people be like management be complacent about the fact that, oh, we're commuting less, therefore we're doing well in terms of carbon, but actually thinking about how to maximize those gains. So it's thinking tactically in terms of, can we get it like really wide and cultural changing, but also can it be specific enough that people can actually engage with it? So it's striking that balance between, because I think the no more thank you emails, it's so specific that anyone can understand it and anyone can get involved with it straight away. So I'm interested in seeing what people think in terms of, do we go broader but maybe harder for somebody to comprehend all in one go, or is it actually quite easy to comprehend, do you think? It's interesting to see what people think. Or do we go for something really like narrow, but like is easier for lots and lots of people to get on board with? I'm just going to try and keep up with what's been put on Jamboard now as well.
Yes, Sam, on the chat, we have Claire, who said she's happy to share the digital sobriety, I like that, digital sobriety document we sent in our directorate, which is that they encourage people to add "assume my thanks" to their signature and avoid sending thank you emails entirely, which is pretty good.
Great.
Great idea. Katie, Katie, I don't know if you want to come off mute and just expand a bit about that. I know it's going back to the pledge, but it's also very topical to this discussion. If you're able to come off mute.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. I can put my camera on as well. Hi. Nice to meet you all. I'm quite new and still kind of getting my head around exactly what the Climate Collective is about, and I guess I'm very interested in the kind of links to well-being. I see climate change as a symptom of our current system, and just as kind of issues around sort of mental health are all kind of symptoms of the current way in which we live. So I was just wanting to kind of link this, if we were going to have a pledge to look at sort of no thank you emails, I kind of wondered if it could be kind of linked to well-being, and it's actually, well, having that phone call will kind of help you connect more with people, and you never know what a conversation might lead to. It could lead to all sorts of added benefits, and you suddenly find yourself exploring the ramifications of something in an email chain that you'd never even thought of. So I just kind of wanted to make that kind of wider link, and I'm a little bit, I don't know, a bit hesitant. I don't know what the stats are around kind of really recommending an action strongly when it's very peripheral. It's like kind of people like to say, oh, they've done all their recycling, so they've ticked the climate box, and yet they still fly off on holiday. It's
the hand dryer comment. Yeah, but I've swapped the hand dryers, but I still go to Spain 3 times a week.
Yeah, I get quite uncomfortable with that. So there's my 2 pennies worth.
I think on that, Maya, to be honest, I think well-being is a big part, because I mean, I did eco-anxiety stuff last week, didn't I? Just breaking the elephant in the room, if that makes sense. So I think there's a lot there. So I think there's probably a little bit, like Anthony said, like a mixture, a complexity, which bits people feel that they can pledge to and which bits people aren't, whereas at the moment it is all one pledge with a list of everything. So maybe that's something we explore.
I think, yeah, and just very conscious of everyone's time, and obviously this is Sam's part, but I think, Katie, what you brought there to the table is really valid. I mean, there are things where if I hadn't picked up the phone, you know, and heard that actually someone was quite distressed, but because I didn't see that in an email or couldn't capture it in the tone of voice, that's why I think calls are very, very important, you know, and just standard calls for that matter, not always these videos either, you know, just to get a break in the day. So I think it's a really good point where we can capture that, as well as saying thank you, because you could then hear something else throughout that call that you wouldn't have picked up on in an email, and it could be things that are really, you know, well-being concerns. So Sam, over to you.
Yeah, I really like that idea in terms of combining it to be having like a welfare, well-being aspect as well. I think that's also like a really good way to get more people engaged with it, particularly because I think it's probably fair to say that in workplace culture, maybe like there's more managements which are really on board at the moment in terms of maintaining well-being than are in terms of being really like climate focused. That's just a huge generalization, but I mean, I'm sure it's true of some organizations. So that's definitely a good thing to think of, good thing to think about. The other thing, of course, is, as we were saying, like, we don't want to just be kind of like a tick box. I didn't send an email today, therefore I'm doing my bit. It's about also, it is about like building on that and trying to like get to being more of a culture change. So it has to be like a step rather than a final destination. But I think, yeah, we've basically run out of time, haven't we? So I think we're just going to have to finish up here. Just say thank you very much for all of the comments on this. So just for my last bit here, we're looking at starting a campaign hopefully around September. So there's still time to think about it, still time to plan it. If anyone wants to like remain involved in terms of planning that, then please do email me or find me on Slack. And like, it'd be great to have more people being part of that conversation. But that's it from me. Maya, do you want to say anything before we finish?
No, just really heartfelt thanks. It really means a lot to us that you've taken some part of your day to help us. We want it to be very co-productive. So thank you so much. Feel free to reach out to us, continue adding to the Jamboard, and yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Heather or indeed Mike, as other members on here, want to say anything, but thank you so much. I'll assume Heather's silence means
yeah,
we're good to
Sorry,
go.
I was sharing. I was thinking. I'm doing a little bit of a note for anybody who wants to see our newsletter. But yes, no, thank you for everyone. Yeah, it's really useful. I think we'll be coming back with an overview of the last 4 days and the things that we're going to take on board as part of our working groups. But I think we're going to give ourselves probably a week's holiday to then, well, not a week's holiday, a week's grace before we kind of come back and then work it out with all the other working groups to see that we're doing the right thing for our community. So we'll take that away and come back to it at our next newsletter. So I've just shared with you our recent one, and we'll do that again on the lead up to COP and 15 and 26. So
brilliant. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day and do stay safe and well. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Thanks, bye.